Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Right Time, a Wave Sports and Entertainment original presented by Prize Picks. My name is Bomani Jones. Thanks for listening wherever you get your podcast. Thanks for watching us on YouTube. Subscribe, like, rate us, review us, give us 5 stars. You only give us 4 stars, I'm inclined to believe you are a hater. You know what I'm saying? If y'all wasn't here for the last show, I'm bringing some Christmas spirit up in this motherfucker. You know what I mean? That's just kind of where I'm at, though I have to be honest with you. These hats is hot. Like, I'd never really considered that it would make sense that these hats would be hot, given, like, the whole wintry thing and everything else, you know, the North Pole, all of that stuff. Maybe it's these lights they got in here to make me look my best, but I got to tell you, it's a little steamy under here. At some point, I might have to make a sartorial decision that is not nearly as festive. But anyway, got some NFL action. We're going to talk about it in just a second. Also, a little bit later, I'm going to do a little bit of I told you so about why this stupid little playoff in college football, terrible idea. We got your voicemails. I ain't talking about Jay-Z today. But anyway, I wanted to focus kind of ironically, considering what a festive man I clearly am right now. Man, it's some people that's out here salty right now in the NFL. I mean, like super salty. And as things stand presently, the saltiest place in the NFL is New York City. I guess more accurately one could say is East Rutherford, New Jersey. But in sum total, it is overall New York City. Now, you need to understand, it's been a little bit of a weird time here in New York City. We talked about this the other day. They still ain't found that man that shot that man, the CEO of the health company. Sean, they are never going to find him. I don't know if you have, you know, you're localist, you're from New Jersey. They're never going to find this guy.
When I found out he took a bus from Port Authority, I was like, that guy's gone. I was like, no one's finding him in Port Authority. Are you kidding me?
Look, the fact that he got on the bus and you still don't know what bus he got on,
he's gone.
It's a wrap.
I used to commute to Port Authority. I used to commute from Jersey to New York to Port Authority. That is a zoo. It's a maze. You can't find anyone in there.
That dude broke out, and they want us to believe, oh, we got this under control. They're like, we got a name. Y'all had a name. Y'all would have told us a name. Y'all thought y'all had a face. Y'all told us a face. You gonna tell me you got this dude's name, and you're not gonna give us the name?
I don't know if you saw the clip of it's like 6 cops taking a stroll around Central Park looking for him, and I was like,
yes, I did.
New York is screwed. They're never gonna find him.
Yeah, they look just like them cops. They just walking around hoping to catch somebody smoking weed. That's all they try to do. And they ain't even really got no real charge when it comes on that. But anyway, thank goodness for the Sunday ticket. Because, like, if you live here, the only thing worse than living in a city with one bad football team that you don't root for is a city with 2 bad football teams that you don't root for. It was wall-to-wall coverage of the booty butts for the 1 o'clock slates on the local ticket. Now, granted, it wasn't that many other games that was any good, but it was the Giants being sorry on one channel and the Jets being sorry on the other. To be fair, the Jets weren't being nearly as sorry as they ordinarily had been, but they went out there and they lost the game against the Dolphins. Now, I need to look up something right fast because we got a clip here from Garrett Wilson. And Garrett Wilson is 24 years old. I want to point out that he is 24 years old for 2 reasons. Number one, he looked like he in one of them 1980s singing groups in this picture. Like, once you see the video when we run it, you're going to be like, damn, that boy look ready for the world. Okay, there's that. Number 2, I am pointing out that he is 24 years old to say that you're not supposed to talk like this when you're 24 years old, but this is what happens when you're surrounded by losers for the entirety of your professional career. This is him after they lost the game to the Dolphins.
I think you guys have lost 5 games this year where you've had a lead in the fourth quarter. Like, how hard is that to fathom? I know you've dealt with a lot in your time here, but that's a little different kind of losing.
Yeah, losing period sucks. Yeah. And, you know, when you're up in the fourth quarter, all of a sudden it starts to feel like you have a losing problem. It's like you have like a gene or something. So it's not like we're just going out there and getting our butt beat from start to finish. You know, no, we have a chance to go win the game. We're supposed to win the game. Odds are in our favor, and we're finding a way to lose the game. So it's just frustrating for sure.
All right. First of all, young man, either put some more shit in your hair or less. But as things stand presently, you kind of in this in between nebulous state. It's kind of like there was a period when I was a kid where my daddy was toying with the idea of the Grecian, but my parents be trying to not spend no extra money, so he wasn't trying to use any extra Grecian formula. So instead of getting all the way there, he would kind of stop at this in between state before he finally realized that heavy salt with a little pepper was probably gonna wind up being his play. That is number one. Number two. It's one thing to say that we we losing and we keep losing a bunch of games. But that man said that we some born losers. Like, that's what it means when you say that you got a losing gene, that y'all were born to lose. You were conceived to lose. The whole purpose of your existence is losing. Like he just said, I guess we're just losers. We went and got a Hall of Fame quarterback, and now he's a loser too after being exposed to us. Maybe the FDA needs to start testing the milk that's at the Jets facility to see if it has got some of that loser flu in it. Because that's how he feels. He feels like they a bunch of losers. But you know what? They are not the biggest losers in New York City. No, sir. If they are, I don't know why, but I have no reason to believe that they're the biggest losers in New York City because the Giants so bad, man. Giants at the point now where they flying banners over with people asking them to sell the team, which, by the way, is never going to happen. They normally ask that out of like the nouveau riche type of owners, man. These jokers, it ain't been this same Mara, but that family has been owning the Giants for decades and decades and decades. It take a lot for somebody to say that y'all need to sell the team. They ain't never going to sell the team. You must be crazy. But anyway, they lost to the Saints, which, I mean, the Saints are sorry. Like, I didn't watch but so much of that game. I did turn. It wound up being the bonus coverage on the Sunday Ticket. Like, I forget which game I was watching on the Sunday Ticket, and the next thing I know, they're like, oh, we've got bonus coverage. And who asked for this? Like, people are always under the impression that just because somebody give you something for free, that it's a benefit. That was not that was not bonus. It was extra. That's not the same thing. That was leftovers. You just had some shit laying around and was like, well, hey, you want this? And I didn't even get a chance to say no, and you just put it in my face anyway. But whatever. Saints blocked the kick at the end of the game. The final score was 14-11. You know, when you get weird numbers, that's how you know you got at least one sorry team involved. When the game be ending in weird numbers like that. But anyway, it was 14-11. And Malik Neighbors plays wide receiver for the Giants. Malik Neighbors appears to be a very, very, very talented young man. There was a tweet that went out during the game where a woman said that she heard Malik Neighbors on the field saying, y'all calling plays like I ain't even out here. And Tyrann Mathieu, who also went to LSU and is also from South Louisiana, Neighbors is from Lafayette. Tyrann Mathieu from New Orleans. He came out and said that actually he was the one who was saying that, which is both entirely possible and quite possibly a real dope big brother move because old buddy was the one who said that. I'm not sure which one it is. Anyway, I think that I remember once there was an interview with Whitney Houston in Rolling Stone in the early 90s. I believe it was before she married Bobby Brown, but after they had gotten engaged. And I always remember my sister read that interview, and the conclusion that she had drawn from reading that interview was that at some point the writer had figured out that you could get her to say anything. And so once that happens, you just start throwing stuff out there to see what happens. And I think they be seeing Malik Neighbors, how close he is to cracking, and they just want to see, like, hey, maybe he'll be the one to go ahead and do it. Listen to what happened with Malik Neighbors after the game.
Plane flew over to the stadium before the game, said pledged to ownership to fix this dumpster fire. That's the word that was used. Huh? There was a plane that flew over to the stadium before the game and said, Mr. Mara, please fix this dumpster fire. How do you, as a player, what do you make of that?
I ain't paid for the plane. I ain't got nothing to say about it. I ain't paid for it.
I ain't paid for the plane. I ain't got nothing to say. Well played, young man. Well played. Because look, man, he appears to be a throwback. He appears to be a give me the ball or I'm going to be upset about it sort of dude. I kind of like that sort of wide receiver. They ain't got them cats out the league, but especially now that they're going to be coming to the league with some paper. Oh, man. Okay. But yes, that is where the Giants stand, and I apologize. The banner was not to sell the team. It was to fix the dumpster fire. And it also sounded like an expression that Malik Neighbors himself had neither heard nor used before. Anyway, speaking of salty wide receivers, we got A.J. Brown here after the Eagles game, and I want to pull up the numbers right fast because Jalen Hurts is a very, very interesting sort of situation because just because he did it once, does that mean that you can be trusted to do it again? That is where we are with the Eagles. Jalen Hurts showed that he could be the quarterback of a team that goes to the Super Bowl. He even showed that he could be a good quarterback in the Super Bowl. He showed he could throw the ball well in the Super Bowl. But prior to getting that job and getting to the Eagles, I said I had seen him play for two professional teams, and his passing capped their potential. One of them was Alabama, and the other was Oklahoma, right? I was apprehensive about him, but then he did it, and he got the money, and they had to give him the money. However, this game, he was 14 for 21 for a robust 108 yards. That is 5 yards per attempt. Here is A.J. Brown, wide receiver, after the game.
Wasn't good enough. What are some things you think that the offense needs to improve on? Passing.
AJ, I know everybody wants to get in a rhythm, and Devontae was acknowledging that. You know, receivers, just like running backs, want to get in a rhythm. How hard is it as a receiver to get into a rhythm when you guys are only throwing the ball like 20 times?
Incredibly tough.
So, I should point out, Sean, that the people I played earlier in the show, all of their teams lost. The Eagles won.
Yeah, it's a tough look when that's his facial reaction on a loss. I mean, after a win, not a loss.
Hold on. Not after a win, just after a win, Sean. After their 9th win in a row.
Insane.
They should be a little bit happier. I was watching TV before we got in here, and I think it was Rex Ryan who made the point. Not everybody can be the best team in the NFL, right? In fact, I felt like this whole weekend, basically all it was doing was reminding me how fortunate we are because the weekend wasn't the same without the best team in the NFL because they played on Thursday. But anyway, he was like, look, man, Amon-Ra St. Brown caught like 2 or 3 passes the other night, and he's out there blocking. A.J. Brown is salty after this happened. Now, to be clear, while they won the game against those lowly Panthers, they came real close to losing it, except my guy Xavier Leggett dropped a pass, unfortunately, and he was not able to score the touchdown on it. It was real, real disappointing that it went that way. But it dawned on me that some of y'all may not be familiar with Xavier Leggett, and he went to South Carolina. He was the Panthers' first-round pick. He is a wide receiver. He appears to be a charming and delightful young man, and quite possibly, and I understand that what I'm saying here is a very, very, very bold statement. He's quite possibly the country's man to ever play NFL football. Now, we are going to show you a video here, and this was before Thanksgiving, where he was asked what he was looking forward to. Now, keep in mind, he plays for the Panthers, but he's from South Carolina, so he could just shoot right down to go have dinner with the people in whatever rural enclave it is that he is from. And you're like, Bomani, how rural could it be? How country could he possibly be? This is Xavier Leggett talking about what he was looking forward to at Thanksgiving.
When I'm mostly excited to eat today, man, it's gonna be that coon, man. My cousin, they called me up last night and told me they killed the coon 2 days ago. They took the clothes off and everything, washed them up. Yeah, we about to dive into that today, man.
Come on, man. Shout out to you, man. Happy Thanksgiving, brother.
Happy Thanksgiving, dog.
Sean, did you see how excited he was about that? Can we run that one more time, please? Just in case people missed it.
When I'm mostly excited to eat today, man, it's gonna be that coon, man. My cousin, they called me up last night and told me they killed the coon 2 days ago. They took the clothes off and everything, washed them up. Yeah, we about to dive into that today, man.
Come on, man. Shout out to you, man. Happy Thanksgiving, brother.
Happy Thanksgiving, dog.
Do you see the smile on his face? Do you see the way he was rubbing his hands together? He ready for that raccoon. He said they took the clothes, washed them up, took the clothes off him. He can't wait.
I don't really even like turkey, but whatever they're eating sounds good if he's that happy about it.
Sean, raccoon. He
I
said
know.
they're going to eat a raccoon. He did make that raccoon sound scrumptious, though. Like there definitely appeared to be a level of excitement about that. He had that smile on his face. He seems to be like a really, earnest, endearing sort of dude, man. But anyway, he did drop it. I needed to go see if they did any interviews, talk about how he felt after that loss. But anyway, I kind of joke when I say that the weekend was about realizing that everybody wasn't as good as the Detroit Lions. It's that just kind of what happened, right? The Chiefs managed to get themselves a W. Although it was another one of those Chiefs games, man. Like, you shouldn't have to do this every week, I guess is the point with them. And some team, and I guess this is what it's going to have to come down to. If a team gets up on the Chiefs by 2 touchdowns, do you still have that feeling that they can just walk them down like they've walked everybody else down? Because the offense is putrid. They need to try something different with their tackles and maybe put skinny people out there and see if maybe that works, because the fat dudes ain't getting it done. Like, they're not bringing it. They don't look like that kind of a team. And while we're here, Sean, just throwing this out here, Tamba Hali went to Penn State. He played for the Chiefs. And, you know, for some reason, they still do the damn war chant, and they love banging on the drum and all these other things that our Native brothers and sisters have told people that they don't really like. But, hey, they think they showing them honor. Anyway, I remember Tamba Hali. This is the first time I've seen him in quite a while. Now, I need you, for you people watching on video, he's only 41 years old. I need you to look at what the hell is going on with this man. Yeah. Yo. So he got the bald head. Somebody put it in my mentions. He got the bald head like the homie that was cool with Cliff Huxtable, the one he played Pinochle with, but he also got the dreadlocks underneath it. And I just let it go, big dog. Let it go. Also, Sean, why does his jersey not have his name on the back of it? Did he go buy it at the gas station?
Yeah, it looks like one of those like Temu jerseys. It doesn't even look like the right red.
Yeah, like I'm just saying, man. Like, yeah. Anyway, best game of the weekend, at least as far as I saw. Sean, did you get a chance to watch the Rams of Los Angeles against the Bills of Buffalo?
I sure did. That was the one game I really sat down and watched the whole thing, and it was incredible. I can't believe the Rams played so well.
Hey, man, let me tell you something. They played well. Let's get that straight. They won the game. They went up early, and that was good. You can talk about how it happened at the end or whatever. McDermott calling the sneak when he shouldn't have, and he shouldn't have, because it wasn't like it was a half yard. It was a full yard. That was too much to ask. All that stuff. None of that really matters. They were probably not going to win the game, like in all likelihood. Okay, fine. Dude, Josh Allen got 5 touchdowns by himself in that game, if I'm not mistaken, between rushing and passing. Now, some of that was bad defense. I also want to be clear about that. Like, there was the one pass to, what's his name, Shakir. It went down the middle of the field where I was just like, oh, the Rams, they look like they got alternate streams of income in this game. It was 6 touchdowns. There we go. Thank you. It looked like alternate streams of income was coming in for them dudes. They didn't seem nearly as excited about making tackles as they should have. But Josh Allen was doing things and making plays where, like, you see that stuff in high school, where this guy is that much bigger and apparently or seemingly faster than everybody else. The MVP thing, it's a wrap. Like, I think he's managed to have something like 3 or 4 straight games on national television, and he out there Bon Jovi, and boy, I seen a million faces, and I rocked them all. Like, I don't know what would have to happen at the end of this year for him to not be the MVP. And it would be nothing for me to complain about. Like, I talk to you all the time about how these things kind of get built about this thing happening and that thing happening and everything else. And up until this point, I have said that I think Lamar Jackson has played better than anybody else. But in the games that mattered, in the way that this game mattered, I have not seen Lamar Jackson do that. I just haven't. Some of these other games, I think that, like, we've seen Allen do something every now and then, and it felt like that, but it wasn't consistently that. This game, it just felt like it was consistently that. It was bananas. It was absurd watching what he did.
You said last week about how Lamar Jackson needs to get to the point where he's responsible for either the team winning or losing. Josh Allen yesterday was certainly not the reason they lost. He did everything in his power to get them to lose by just 2, essentially.
Yeah. He was not riding along with the loss.
Yep.
He did everything. Now, the problem that they had was the Rams just kept staying on the field on third downs, right? So you're Buffalo and you miss a couple third downs. Okay, that's going to happen sometimes, except when it doesn't happen with the other team. Now you've got this great big old gigantic problem. And that seemed to me to be the biggest thing that happened in the course of that game was the Bills just could not get themselves off the field. And I think the Bills have a bigger issue, which is they don't seem to be able to win on the road. Now, the blessing for them is apparently the only time that they will probably have to go on the road is if they go to Kansas City. But winning on the road, they're 4-3 on the road. They win all the games at home, right? This seems to be their thing. But he looked good. I cannot say that the Buffalo Bills did. Even with that close game with the Lions, and even though everybody keeps falling off, you can't tell me that you watch these other teams. Dominique came out here and talked about all those things with the Eagles. He can't tell me he feel that good about Jalen Hurts. I don't care how black he is. You know what I'm saying? You can't tell me you look at these teams and feel like any of them got something truly for the Honolulu Blue. They might catch my boys slipping at some point, but ain't nobody caught them boys slipping since September. That's all I'm saying. And luckily, they'll be back next week to remind us what true NFL greatness in 2024 looks like. All right, man. College football playoff. They announced all the teams that was going to be in it, okay? Now, I have not paid as close attention to college football this year as I have in past years. So I am not that inclined to get into a discussion or an argument about what team gets seeded where or anything else. And you know a big reason why I'm not that inclined to do that? I'm not inclined to do that because I'm not arguing about no team that lost to Vanderbilt. Okay? I'm not arguing about no team that lost no 3 games. I'm not arguing about no team that like 2 weeks ago lost to a team that was under 500 and lost like definitively to a team that was under 500. Okay? I'm not getting into it. I refuse. All right? Refuse. What I am going to do is tell you something that I've been trying to tell y'all for the longest, and something that becomes even more clear as you add more teams to the playoff. There is no good way to determine a champion in college football. It is mechanically not possible. It's nobody's fault. It's not something that anybody is ever going to be able to solve. And in fact, they have actually made it more difficult because of these consolidations of conferences, because what that did was that created a greater level of variance when you start looking at the calendars and schedules that every team has played. So you used to have at least some reasonable idea that, okay, we had 2 teams that played in the same conference. One of them is 6-2 in the conference. One of them is 7-1. Okay, I got a general idea about what that means between those teams. If they're in the same division, not in the same division, or whatever it is. But once you start making these conferences 18 teams or whatever it is, it's very easy to wind up with teams, if for no other reason, or another thing that we talk about here, it's very, very easy to have teams that go through these seasons without having to play a soul. And that is not that easy for you to do within those smaller conferences, because it's much more of a round robin type of situation and everybody just about gets to play everybody. So what this committee is being asked to do is to go across the board and come up with all of these comparisons with very few things to anchor around, like with very little commonality, to give you what I think is truly necessary to try separating out teams from 1 to 12, okay? The other point that I make in this that I think is very, very important is that as you get closer and closer to the middle of the distribution, so you get away from 1 and get closer to, how many of the teams is it? Like 130 something, so we'll call it 65, right? As you start getting closer there, the differences between the teams become smaller and smaller and become more and more negligible, which of course then makes it even more and more difficult to tell the difference between what team is better than the other. And when the difference between 12 and 13 is the difference between who gets to go to a playoff and who doesn't, you're always going to be able to make a point in either direction. Now, the argument that you're always going to be able to make a point in either direction has been a selling point of college football because arguing is a thing that people have enjoyed doing since the beginning of time. Okay. But now you're just not really going to be able to come to no good answer, no matter how it spins, no matter how it goes. You're not going to be able to do that. What everybody is left with doing is some general assumptions about conference strength, which often makes sense, right? We generally assume that the SEC is a stronger conference than all of these other conferences, right? That for most of the last 20 years or so, that has been the case. The difficulty, though, in doing that now is what SEC means is completely different because you don't know who is going to play, who are the games they're going to have, and everything else. The best argument that you can make about teams outside of the SEC is that even though they may have great records, and let's say, hey, one of them even managed to pop up and win a game against a really good SEC team. Let's just throw it out there and say that happens. The argument against them is, would they be able to play week in and week out if they were in the SEC? Most people would make the argument, probably not. And there's something fair to be said about that. I'll just throw this out here, okay? This is an argument that people have made about teams and conferences like the Big 12, for example. Well, in the last 15 years, the SEC has taken on 4 teams from the Big 12, okay? Is it 4? Yeah, it's 4 teams from the Big 12. I would just like to point out, Texas A&M came in their first year and went 10-2 in the conference and won a game at Alabama against an Alabama team that won a national championship and then went on to win the Cotton Bowl that year in their first year in the conference. I would also like to point out that Missouri, upon entering the conference, managed to go to the SEC championship game in back-to-back seasons shortly after they arrived in the conference. This year, Texas got to the SEC championship game playing in this conference. And Oklahoma, while they had a disappointing season, certainly won a game against Alabama after playing all these games in the SEC, right? What I'm saying is the gap between the SEC and everybody else actually isn't quite as big as is advertised. So even that thing, even that metric that you probably want to lean on in order to try to make these decisions, you probably shouldn't even lean on that as well as you had. This is hard. This is impossible. You're not going to be able to figure it out. All you're doing is coming up with a system that's going to make people mad. And by the way, a system that's going to make people mad, and the teams that we are discussing are teams that are probably not going to win a championship because the number 12 team is probably not going to win out in this thing. The only way the number 12 team really probably got a chance to win out on this thing is through some war of attrition, which is to say, assuming other people's players are going to wind up getting hurt. And then that's the way that you wind up beating them. Hey, man, Georgia, I think they had a number 2 seed in this playoff. I saw their quarterback almost get his arm ripped off. How you think that's going to go when they start going? Even though they seem to get better when he went out the game, but I don't know what that's going to be either because that dude got his head scrambled. At least it looked like it out in the course of that game. You would never go find out a way to come up with this, but you know what they were going to find a way to do? They found a way to put together a television show. And the sooner you start treating this playoff like a television show, treat it like the Maui Invitational or any other made-for-television event, and then you will have a better appreciation for what this playoff happens to be. They like, hey, we got some holes in this calendar, but we could do some bigger numbers because that's the whole thing about these bowl games. Why do we have all these bowl games? Because people watch them on television. They are television shows. ESPN owns 17 bowl games. You're asking the question, why do we have a gazillion bowl games? Because they're television shows and a television network puts them together so that they can have this television show that is going to make all this money. The playoff is another television show. That's it. And so what they do, and I want to be clear about this because this is very important to me about this. These are things that I said when I worked at ESPN and did this exact same podcast on their network. Okay, so this is not a case of me being willing to say something that I wasn't willing to say when I was on their payroll. No. I've been saying this, and they don't care because y'all don't care because y'all just want a TV show too, right? Like this ain't gonna bring down the house or anything like that, okay? But this is it. They own all those episodes of a TV show. And so now they looking up. They're like, yo, right up here, right before Christmas, we got some Fridays or whatever that we could drop in some action. Okay, cool. And so you're going to have these games very often in places where you're not supposed to be playing college football games because it's going to be so ridiculously cold. And this is not the elements are not a part of college football. Like, you can't think of that many games that have been played in the snow in college football. Not that they never happen, but the elements is not really it. Like, one of the cool things about bowl season and everything else about college football is they reset this in typically good weather and like close to optimal conditions. That's what they do. Now you're talking about a sport where home field advantage matters a great deal. And now you're going to add all of this. This isn't how we've done it over here. Historically, this isn't the way that the game has been played here, and I don't think that it's ultimately going to be an improvement. But they gonna have these shows on television all season long. They wait a little bit, then they get into October, and then they got a show on Tuesday nights where they tell you all this stuff about what's happening through the course of the season. Not a single one of them shows matters because the only one that matters is the one at the very end. But see, they put themselves in a box because last week, they had to figure out, well, what do we do? Because historically, in this game, you get punished more for recent losses, okay? Well, what do we do about these teams that are in the conference championship games? What if they lose? Is it fair to have them get jumped over by a team that didn't go to one? SMU and Alabama being an example of that. And you're like, damn, no, you can't really do that. You're right. That would be a bad look because then teams wouldn't want to go to the conference championships, which are also television shows that people want to watch. Yeah. So we're not going to hop anybody over. Okay, cool. Fair point. But is it also fair to say that Alabama's win over Georgia becomes more impressive because Georgia is now the SEC champion? One could make that argument, right? Is that enough to move them over in SMU? I don't know, but the idea that this is all static implies that everything else surrounding those teams is also static, and that's not the case because the logic that you use to make these decisions in college football involves a lot of transitivity. Right. You understand what I'm saying here? There's no good way to do this. It can't be done. So you wind up trotting Ward Manuel out there, who is black, by the way. I didn't realize that. Don't get me wrong. He's from New Orleans and looked like it. So, you know. But anyway, he black. Had no idea. They sent his black ass out there to try to explain the inexplicable. That's a tough game, homie. Like, it's a real tough game that he's got. Speaking of a tough game, it looked like it's time for Marcus Freeman, he the head coach at Notre Dame, to come home. And I don't know what's Sean, like, he got an NIL deal with Kiwi.
I have no idea what's going on, Bo.
Oh my God. Like, it looked like he was in there signing letters, like signing, like offer letters. And instead of putting the stamp in the ink pad, he just put the stamp right here on his forehead, and then he was bringing it down. Like, that's what he looked like.
Fresh ink,
Yes. Oh my God, he was gleaming. Like, I was so lost as that I would be recruiting against Notre Dame with that. Like, look, even the coach can't get a good haircut. You really want to go there, right? But they gonna be playing on the TV show. They gonna be going against Indiana. That's gonna be a game. It's. I will give the committee credit for this. They didn't put Alabama in because the TV show really would have preferred Alabama because this game is sold on brands. They didn't do that. I guess there's some honorability. I guess there's some nobility in that. I don't know. This is not going to create a truer champion. And I have said that many times, and maybe another day I'll talk about it because I've gone on for too long. But people need to understand that a tournament is not the only way to come up with a champion. There are many, many ways to figure out who a champion is. And this sport had its own way. First, it was through pretty much strictly through polls. And then they used these polls and everything else to put together a championship game. And the championship game was interesting because you said it was a championship game, and that gives it the stakes. And then we'll watch it. It's not going to be better by this bracket. In fact, what we're going to have with this bracket is teams who, the farther they go, are going to be more beat down, and we don't see the teams as close to their best versions of themselves. That is what we're going to have. The champion is actually probably going to be more random and less tied to what happened in the regular season because you're adding more observations into the sample. This is not good. This is not a win for anybody except the people who make money off television shows. They are going to be the winners. Now, the last thing I will say to you about television shows is every year we wind up, it seems like new bowls, but they not new bowls. It's just the bowl got a new sponsor, and nobody loves sponsoring a bowl like some people you've never heard of. Sean, can we put up here the ReliaQuest Bowl in Tampa? And what does that hashtag say? Is football in paradise or something?
Yep, hashtag football in paradise.
Football in paradise. And who has ever called Shady Tampa paradise? I know we got a beach. I know the homie Joel in Missouri City likes it, but paradise? But see, this is the thing. This is what that game is given, though, is really what people like out of college football. The people from up north get an excuse to go down from Florida and see the sun because they ain't going to see no more in a few weeks, right? The fans of Alabama get themselves a little trip. We get some brand names. They play some football. We pass the time on a holiday. That's all we ever needed. And you had to go out here doing too much because y'all greedy. The NBA is in full swing, which means you could turn $10 into $1,000 in a single game watching your favorite teams only on Prize Picks. You can make a Prize Picks lineup between the NFL and the NBA in as little as 60 seconds. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types are what make Prize Picks the #1 fantasy sports app. But rather than hearing it from me, let's hear it from an expert picker. Sean, how the picks been going?
You know, Bo, I'm probably an expert picker solely on the sheer volume of picks I make, but the picking's been good. I got the NBA and the NFL where I can make picks between both leagues. I can pick Cooper Kupp one day and LeBron James the other, and I love that flexibility that Prize Picks gives. And, you know, as always, make sure you stick around for the end of the show to hear my upcoming picks. And if you know me, you know I'm always picking more.
So make sure you go to prizepicks.com/Bomani and use code Bomani for a first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/Bomani. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. Peloton has what you need to keep you on track to your goals no matter what season of life you're in. I've been trying to get my way back to 100% after a little injury, but Peloton has me covered each step of the way. Peloton has all sorts of classes depending on how hard you want to train. If you want to take it easy, some days you can take a lighter cycling or cardio class to help you with your recovery. They have programs to keep you on track, from strength training programs you can use at the gym to meditation and yoga for the postgame. Plus, you can challenge yourself anywhere with Peloton's all-access membership. You can work out where you need to, like at your home, on your bike, tread, and row, or take your favorite classes on the go and at the gym with the app. The app is super convenient, and I genuinely use it every week. And in this season, for me specifically, Peloton's wide range of stretching and recovery classes are perfect to keep my body moving at 100%. So make sure you download the Peloton app today. Find your push, find your power with Peloton at onepeloton.com. I love a great deal as much as the next guy, but I'm not going to crawl through a bed of hot coals just to save a few bucks. It has to be easy. No hoops, no BS. So when Mint Mobile said it was easy to get wireless for $15 a month with the purchase of a 3-month plan, I called them on it. Turns out it really is that easy to get wireless for $15 a month. The longest part of the process was the time I spent on hold waiting to break up with my old provider. And if you don't believe me, Sean, tell them how easy it is to sign up.
To get started, go to mintmobile.com/Bomani. There you'll see that right now, all 3-month plans are only $15 a month, including the unlimited plan. All plans come with high-speed data, unlimited talk, and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all your existing contacts. To get this new customer offer and your 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/Bomani. That's mintmobile.com/Bomani. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/Bomani. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigs on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for more details.
We know you can't be on top of all the news and information of the day. No need for the social media feeds. We got you. Now, if you haven't heard.
All right, Bo, here's clip number 1.
Hi, I'm Aki Ito. I'm a reporter with Business Insider. And over the past year, I've heard from hundreds of job seekers in a similar predicament. They're mid to senior level professionals, usually in their 50s. And even though they've spent decades at these incredibly reputable companies climbing the corporate ladder, now they're finding themselves applying to hundreds of jobs and they're getting very few callbacks. They're just totally baffled and they keep on asking me, what is going on? I've been trying to track down why, and I finally got my hands on some data that I think solves this mystery. Basically, what's happened is companies have gutted their middle management jobs over the past 2 years. It's kind of this latest corporate fad for efficiency. And now, even though a lot of these companies have started hiring again for lower level roles, they're just not hiring for middle management jobs anymore. That's left all these former middle managers with nowhere to go. And that's why they're having such a hard time on the market, even though they have these amazing resumes.
So I've never had a middle management level job or whatever, but it sounds in some ways, Sean, as though the American job market is turning very similar to a phenomenon that we're witnessing in professional sports. And I also see it happening in a lot of cases in media for talent, where a lot of the jobs that pay a bunch and a lot of jobs that pay a little, and they're gutting out what's happening on the inside. And that, to me, okay.
Oh, go for it.
Yeah. To me, it speaks to something larger that is going on that I've been thinking about and I haven't had a chance to fully explore. And I think I may have talked about it on the show, but it's very important. I think, for example, the mistake that the Democrats are making in their messaging is they keep trying to come out here and claim that they are out here riding for the middle class. And the strategy of saying that you're riding for the middle class is typically fairly effective because most people think they are middle class, even though many of them are poor, but whatever. They don't think of themselves that way. They think themselves as middle class. So saying that you do it for the middle class speaks to more people, when the truth is the messaging needs to be much more in line with the truth, which is the middle class is being eliminated and we got to figure out a way to save it. Right? Because to have a functioning society that really isn't super cutthroat at all times requires there be a comfortable middle, right? Because otherwise the stakes are too high for you to be cool being on one side, and on the other side, you can never stop being on the hamster wheel because you're afraid you're always going to wind up back on the other side or whatever it is. But that's the thing that seems to be happening. And so it's interesting to hear that the idea of the middle management jobs being gone, and rather than finding other ways to put people to work that could then help you make more money, they just like, nah, we ain't going to do that no more. Right? So then what happens to perfectly average people? And I know it sounds harsh when I'm saying it, right? But I'm like the Theo Huxtable, what if I was just a regular person? You know what I mean? But like, yo, they can't all be stars. So then what?
It's literally the middle class is fusing with the lower class, and it's just becoming everyone that's not rich, right? And it's like, you know, the amount of times, and with AI, all the AI clips we listen on this segment, you know, at my previous job, something they would always say is like, you know, if you want to move up the ladder or you're unhappy with your current state as a PA, AP, or whatever, you know, position at ESPN or whatever company, they're like, well, we could hire anyone. You know, we could hire anyone who wants to do this because the draw is so big, especially in sports, right? Like to work at this company with this name brand, it's so enticing. We can truly hire anyone. So it's causing like so much more demand and not enough roles to fill.
yeah, man, we just might be cooked. Just throwing it out there.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think we're all cooked. Yes, you're right. All right, here's the next one.
Hi, my name is Josh Rothman. I'm a writer for the New Yorker magazine, and I publish a weekly column called Open Questions. A question I asked recently was, are grown-ups just giant kids? So this column came from just a thing that happened, which is that my son and I were at the convenience store buying ice cream, and a Cybertruck pulled up into the parking lot. And my son is 6. He's so into Cybertrucks, and he went up to the truck totally geeking out. And the guy who owned it rolled down the window, and they shared a moment of connection. And I thought, they love this Cybertruck in exactly the same way. They're just like each other. And it's just something you see when you have kids, how much adults and kids have in common. They like so much of the same stuff. Grown-ups are just as obsessed with yummy treats as kids, for example. Grown-ups love True Detective, but kids love the Hardy Boys. There's that kind of stuff. But also, kids have a lot that's pretty serious in their lives. They can get nostalgic for the past. They can worry about death. They can do all sorts of grown-up things. So, without minimizing the differences that are obvious and undeniable between adults and children, my column just explored the question of, how much do they really have in common, and what can you learn from exploring their commonalities? And among other things, I guess, it just changes your sense of the continuity and the scale of your life to open yourself up to the idea that you are a big version of the kid you once were. And makes you think about where you live, about your lifelong friendships, about the sort of simple pleasures that can give meaning to your life. So much of adult life can feel sometimes like random or arbitrary or a little bit constricting. And it can be helpful, I think, to sometimes say, I can find happiness in the same things that I enjoyed when I was small. There's other thoughts, but I won't get into it. But overall, I've found it to be a fun thought experiment, and I hope you do too.
All right. Be sure to check the story out, but I would also throw out here, as I talked to you guys about, read a book by my man Neil Postman, rest in peace, called The Disappearance of Childhood. I recommend that you check it out. And I would make the argument that are grown-ups just big children? Perhaps. The better question for me is why that wound up being the case. Part of it is the ways in which that we treat children like they are grown-ups, and then the ways in which we treat grown-ups like they're children or don't allow children to grow up, so then they stay being children deep down underneath, right? But there's a fair, and we watch it more and more, children are more and more like little adults, right? In the ways their parents dress them, in the things that they're exposed to, in the places that parents take them because they don't want to slow up their own fun. So they bring these kids into places that are meant for grown-ups, right? The way that you make kids kids and grown-ups grown-ups is by treating children like children until they reach a point at which it is appropriate for them to become grown-ups. But there need to be clear lines on what is for kids and what is not. That's how that winds up going. If that doesn't happen, then you wind up with what I think and what he wrote. The question becomes not just are grown-ups big kids, are kids little grown-ups? And whether these things don't happen randomly. What do you think it should be like? And then do you live according to that truth?
I'm going to just go ahead and play the next clip because that was great.
Thank you.
I'm Helen Lewis, and I'm a staff writer at The Atlantic. Recently, I wrote a story titled, "The Mainstream Media Has Already Lost." In the 20th century, to reach a mass audience, you needed infrastructure, a printing press, or a broadcast frequency, or a physical cable into people's houses. But the internet and then social media changed all that. In the US election, Joe Rogan's interview with Donald Trump on his podcast was watched by 40 million people on YouTube alone. Compare that with Kamala Harris's contentious interview with Brett Bauer on Fox News, the most popular of the cable networks. That drew 8 million viewers to the live broadcast and another 6.5 million on YouTube. Given those numbers, who is really the mainstream? We act like it's still the big institutions, the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal and CNN, and we treat everyone else who's disseminating information at scale like a couple of hipsters running a craft brewery who are valiantly competing with Budweiser. They're not. New media doesn't just attract big audiences, but big money too. JD Vance, Peter Thiel, and Vivek Ramaswamy have all invested in the video platform Rumble, which went public in 2022, the reported valuation of $2.1 billion. This is not a story of David against Goliath, but many on the political right like to pretend that it is. What we're seeing here is a huge shift in power from institutions to individuals, and we need to update our language accordingly.
So what I think is interesting about that, because I think there's validity to everything that she is saying. But again, I hear that and my thoughts go to what are the consequences of what we're discussing. And the thing for me is, who is vetting these people? We will get out here and listen to any old body. Like I was thinking about this with the evolution of Twitter and what Musk did to the blue check, where the blue check used to be like, hey, you can trust this. And now the blue check is like, yeah, I don't know if you should, right? And I say this to somebody they gave a blue check back to that I didn't ask for, but neither here nor there. Yes, I still think, though, that these sources like the New York Times and all of these things, they are the mainstream media. Regardless of what the numbers are, I still think, even in our polarized world, that those who are ideologically centered, or I don't even know if that's the right way to put it, but I do think that there is still a greater level of trust where I don't like, you can be like, oh, I don't trust the New York Times, but I don't have to look at what's in the New York Times and be like, hey, what about this particular thing? Because I don't know who this person is. Like, there's still something to be said there. I don't know how much familiarity, but so many people could come up with in these other places, and then also provide enough information that I can trust them on a broad set of things to where it's not just a crazy level of work that I got to do to compile this from a zillion of these strangers after doing the work of having to vet these strangers out because there is no branding above them to tell me that it's somebody that I can trust to listen to. So yeah, the mainstream media lost something, but we need to ask ourselves if we need to help it get it back, rather than just observe it as being a thing. Like, there's a value in us having things that we can trust together. And everybody having their own guy on TikTok who knows the game is just probably not a great idea.
All right, Bo, today's holiday-themed voicemail prompt was the wackest Christmas present you've ever received. Shout out to all the members of the audience who submitted some really hilarious voicemails. Here is the first one we got today.
Hey, Bo, Sean, this is CB from Texas. I was calling in regards to your topic of the wackest Christmas gift ever. Well, my mother-in-law of 25 plus years, who frequently brought me whack Christmas gifts, that we had a very, I used to have a very good relationship with her and absolutely adored this woman. One year, she obviously was in a Walgreens and was probably picking up a prescription or something, was standing there at the counter, and looked over and she saw this book that for some reason she thought that her son-in-law needed for Christmas. The book was titled How to Become a Billionaire by one Donald J. Trump. And again, this is about 10 years ago, which I had no interest in that then, and I definitely have no interest in that now. But that was probably the wackest Christmas gift that she ever bought me. I have no idea where that book is. I probably had no idea 5 minutes after I opened the Christmas gift and saw what it was. But that was my wackest Christmas gift ever.
Sean, one year, somebody for Christmas bought me a copy of the Best of American Sports Writing compilation. That sounds like a great gift, right?
The one you probably received because you're in it.
Yes, that would be exactly the one. That would be exactly the one that I received. Didn't even bother to thumb through and check and see. Nope. Yeah, I have plenty of copies of this book, actually. In fact, I remember. Nope, I won't tell that part. But yes, that is correct.
I will say there were a lot of book-related submissions in this, and I think a good piece of advice to everyone is don't get someone a book for Christmas.
That seems to be the common thing.
Yeah, I think that's the common thing. Here's one that's pretty...
Hold on. The person who got me that book I told you about, I absolutely just bought them a book for Christmas yesterday.
I'm sure you picked one that's thoughtful and something that they should read.
Close enough, yeah.
All right, here's one that is pretty wild.
Hey, Bo. You asked about the wackest Christmas gift anyone ever give me. Got it last week. The folks were in town. They said, you know us, we cannot wait to give you your Christmas present. We're going to give it to you early. Because they live in Massachusetts, I live in LA. We don't see each other very often. I opened the bag. Inside the bag are paper copies of my parents' respective last will and testament. That's it. That's the gift. Have a good one, Bo. Take care.
Okay, but what you gonna get?
That's what I wanted to know more. I was like, is it good?
Yeah.
Is it like a goodwill?
Yeah, like that's a very important detail. They might be like, yo, did you see what we said we gonna give you? They gave you an IOU. That's what they gave you for Christmas. They gave you, okay, yeah, that's what they did. They gave him an IOU. They're like, all right, we got you at an undetermined time.
Yeah, I love it'll pay off sooner or later, but no one knows when.
Yes, I mean, nope, not gonna say that. Not gonna say that. Go ahead.
All right, here's the last one.
Gentlemen, love the show. This is Pat from Jersey City. The wackest Christmas gift ever, and I'm sorry to say, oh man, was a FUBU sweater that I got for Christmas. Now, I love the concept of FUBU. I support black businesses always. I myself am black, but am of mixed race. My father was white. We lost him when I was a kid. I grew up in a black family. This FUBU sweater came from the white side of my family, from my grandmother, who I love dearly. I appreciated the sentiment of it. But this thing was all blue with silver FUBU letters across the front. It had one of those weird like swatches of like a leather trapezoid somehow mixed in. And as much as I tried, man, I could not hold back my utter disdain for this garment of clothing. And, man, I've always, as you mentioned, I always had great Christmases. That was one time where it was a big miss. And man, I hate myself for not being able to play it off. But, yeah, that FUBU joint was terrible. Terrible. Love the show, man. Have a great Christmas, everybody.
Brother, I gotta tell you, I was very curious what them white people had to do with anything, but he brought it home. He brought it home. He landed the plane. Tough break. Oh, there's always FUBU. Sean, do you have prize picks for the people?
I sure do. We got some Monday Night Football. I believe it's the Bengals versus the Cowboys. Jamar Chase, 82.5 receiving yards. Let's take more there. And then I'll go with Brandon Aubrey, the Cowboys kicker. 1.5 field goals made. We'll take more there and keep it simple with 2 because I certainly don't think I will be watching Cowboys-Bengals tonight.
You got better shit to do than that.
I sure do, Bo.
Fair point. But ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us here on The Right Time. We do this here 3 times a week. That's Sean Yu. He handles everything behind the scenes. Thank you, sir. Also, thank you to our If You Haven't Heard contributors. Thanks to Aki Ito of Insider. Check out her story on the Great Flattening and Employment in the United States at Insider.com. Thanks to Joshua Rothman of The New Yorker. Check out his story on If Grownups Are Just Giant Kids at TheNewYorker.com. And thanks to Helen Lewis of The Atlantic. Check out her story on how the mainstream media has already lost at TheAtlantic.com. Remember, follow The Right Time, subscribe, like, rate us, review us, give us 5 stars. You only give us 4 stars, I'm inclined to believe you are a hater. We'll talk to you guys in a couple of days. Take it easy.